I'm King Link, and it's time for the Humble Choice April 2021 review. This month, I've actually played each game for 1 hour, and as a change, I actually did it on stream. We'll talk more about that at the end of the video, though. But it's given me a chance to find out what each game is about and if I can recommend it, or rather, to who. There were 13 titles this month, with a double pack being included, as well as a sneak preview, so let's just dive straight in. Starting with Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts. This feels like a mix between Sniper Elite, Metal Gear Solid 5, and Hitman, and that mix is actually pretty good. It has extremely detailed bullet physics and large open world designs for its mission areas. But make no mistake, this is a stealth game with a focus on taking down targets and getting away cleanly, rather than a close combat simulator. There are some places where the personal approach can work, but having a large group of enemies chase you usually ends up with one of them scoring a lucky kill eventually, such as using the grenade here actually ended up with bad results almost every time I did it. The experience though was quite good. There's a lot of different mission objectives, collectibles, challenges, and more, so you will have a lot to play through, and the guards seem to talk quite a bit, but with the game focused on Siberian separatists in Russia, well, everyone just spoke pure English with no explanation for it, with very little accent. Pick this up if you enjoy stealth games with a little bit of action and want to see how they handle large open world maps. It's an interesting game, and the first area felt huge with a lot to explore and do. F1 2020. It's the new version of F1 2019, which now adds in a new My Team mode with you as both the driver and owner of a team. However, it also adds in new microtransactions, including battle passes, item shops for cosmetics, and more. Ugh. With EA buying Codemasters, it's only going to get worse from here. At least this version is pretty solid. If you like extreme speed in Formula 1, there's not much competition. This is a high-octane but skill-based racing game that's going to challenge you. Yet with flashbacks and more, it's not too rough, especially for casual players, though there is a pro mode, so if you want that hardcore, realistic racing sim, I think it still is available here. There is a lot of gamified elements, so you'll learn the game and be rewarded with research points as you experience a normal race weekend, such as little mini games when you're doing the practice mode right before the qualifier. But really, this game is made for the Formula 1 fans. Everything involves getting ready to race or racing in the big races. There is a good media mode where people will talk to you directly about your expectations for an upcoming event or your performance from your last race, but even that's, of course, race adjacent. And while you can simulate the big races, honestly, that is the meat of the game, so I don't see why you would. This is a game for the epic feeling of racing, and that's pretty much it. So pick this up if you're a racing fan or like Formula 1, but outside of that group, I think most people are safe to skip this one as it's a bit of a niche product. Still, it is very solid for what it is. Shenmue 3. I don't like what I've seen of this game so far, whether it's the cutscenes that have entirely too many cuts in the middle of them, a story that feels elongated, such as coming up with multiple reasons to go fight someone rather than just fighting them because they're thugs that are tormenting a village, or combat that's almost always a button masher. Now, I know there is a strong fan base for the series. I'm sure this is the style of game that was made for the Dreamcast and Xbox, and if that's what they wanted, that's okay. I understand nostalgia, but the thing is, for everyone else, I don't think I'm able to see the charm as this game feels quite rough. Add in weak English voice acting, the Japanese seemed like it was okay, frustrating controls, and a menu system that both feels inadequate and outdated. They put the main menu on the right bumper for some reason, I can't even tell you why. And you get a game that should have been released 2 decades ago, if at all. Pick this up if you wanted a sequel to Shenmue 2 that much, but I also think if you wanted that, you'd probably already have this game. I get why there is a fandom for this game, but I also think that it's far rougher than it should be. Main Assembly. This is a creative game where the experience that the game provides is equal to how much effort that a player will invest in the game. Racing through the game in an hour really showed me the depths of the systems here, and they all seem interesting. There's a lengthy and engaging tutorial system with a ton of extra challenges, a challenge mode with even more additional challenges, but freedom for players to choose what they want to target, and finally sandboxes which allow players to create their own content as well as their own levels. But so much of this game is about building new vehicles, levels, and accomplishing goals with them. The controls and systems here feel solid, they're interesting and exciting, and there's a lot to learn and even quite a bit of programming in the form of wiring up your new creations to accomplish different goals. In some ways, this actually reminds me quite a bit of Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, and it's a comparison I like because both games give the player a lot of solid tools and interesting tasks. Pick this up if you want to build, create, and even just explore other people's works. However, everything is more difficult than you probably will expect at first, and while everything is achievable, there's a large ramp-up time where players have to learn how to build, and then what to build, before they have the freedom to build, well, anything. Rock of Ages 3, Make and Break. This is a frustrating game. I spent about half my playtime on the tutorial because Rock of Ages 3 doesn't want to explain anything about its gameplay to the user, but the tutorial was difficult enough that its lack of explanation made that experience far worse. Rock of Ages 3 is about sending your giant boulder down a course at an enemy, and then the enemy sending boulders back at your base. You can build up your base with traps on the path to try to divert or stop the enemy, but ultimately the experience becomes one of frustration as players feel like they have limited control, and the gameplay here is one of quantity, not quality. The cutscenes as well are like vignettes in the middle of Monty Python episodes, along with characters never saying anything. It's an attempt to retell the story of Odysseus, but ultimately it feels like fluff. If you loved Rock of Ages 2, you might want to check this one out, but after a bad tutorial and several levels I feel the players aren't even given a fair shake by the game, I'm fine forgetting about this game existing, and if I wanted to play it, I'd probably go play the second game in the series. Remothered Broken Porcelain. This feels like a game made by people who maybe didn't understand what they were making. The opening begins with a massive exposition dump of the first game that introduces more plot lines than a Metal Gear Solid game at once. It's a story that doesn't really need to exist at that point because the titles don't seem to connect closely. However, much of Remothered Broken Porcelain seems to be introducing more elements of a plot that doesn't attempt to resolve or connect any of them with the previous plot, and before long the players won't care about the story. It's just a big problem because, well, the gameplay is even worse than that. There's this big, creepy stalker that's going to scare you at first, but actually being attacked by her makes you realize she has absolutely no way to really damage the player unless you let her. The game mostly involves sneaking around weak AI, trying to solve puzzles, and deal with more awful scenarios, but the thing is, everything Remothered does is low quality. The animations, the sound, the AI, the gameplay, the controls, the story, there's still bugs in this game. I actually had to restart the game because I somehow soft-locked the game in the first encounter. Pick this game up though if you want a janky game, but I really don't think I can recommend this game to anyone. It's extremely rough in every single aspect. In Other Waters. You're placed in a suit and have to explore, but given no tutorial in this game, so everything you do while playing In Other Waters will be about discovering and exploration, and that's kind of interesting. In Other Waters is very much an exploration game, though it does have a computer at the heart of the suit that you're in who's going to try to talk to you with timed responses. While trying to look at everything on the screen and talk to the AI will overwhelm people, it's also a unique feeling and gives the player a lot to do. Yet, In Other Waters is an interesting and unique game. This is a game unlike anything you've ever played, and that makes this feel extremely fresh. It's a game about discovery rather than being told what to do. It's a game where you need to understand what your actions are rather than following a guided path. That makes it feel different than most games you'll see. I recommend In Other Waters for anyone who thinks they need a new or unique game that they haven't seen before. In some ways, In Other Waters reminds me of Cultist Simulator, but with a far more friendly design philosophy that promotes exploration and experimentation instead of punishing mistakes. On the other hand, it's probably not going to resonate with a lot of people. This isn't an action game or even an adventure game, but also you haven't played a game like this before. If that makes you curious, check this one out. Aven Colony. This is a city builder in outer space where players have to build a colony and try to accomplish goals. There are 2 short tutorial missions as well as 2 larger starting campaign missions. Those starting campaign missions though will really help you get used to Aven Colony, maybe like a extended tutorial. After the first hour though, I was just scratching the surface of that first campaign mission, and really Aven Colony is about micromanagement of your colony and likely expansion to other colonies on the same planet. Each campaign level seemed to take place in different worlds, but I wasn't able to fully complete the first campaign mission in that hour, so I'm limited in what I have experienced. Now, I did enjoy my time with this game, and if I needed a new city builder, this would fit the bill. The science fiction aspects of it work well, the alien landscapes you find yourself exploring feel unique. The missions are just the right scale at the beginning to give you small tasks, but not larger goals that you won't be able to accomplish. But I wonder if there's going to be deeper challenges as you go on, as there's only a handful of buildings. Pick this game up if you like Tropico but want a sci-fi version of it, or if you like Surviving Mars from way back in the Humble Monthly. If you're not already a city building fan, I probably wouldn't recommend this game. I would recommend you check out maybe Tropico, or even better, check out City Skylines. I think both of those are better places to start. Simulacra and Simulacra 2. These are a pair of horror or thriller games. The first game completely spooked me with a major opening that has a lot of horror elements in it, but it didn't really do much in the horror domain in the next 40 minutes of the game, instead focusing more on what life would be like as a woman, and also a bit of a puzzle aspect as well. Simulacra has you finding a woman's phone and then trying to find out what happened to her, especially after that opening scare. Though, while playing it, I kind of noticed how freaking awful it would be to be a woman. There's actually kind of a subtle social commentary in how people spoke to this mystery girl online, and it's done in a very strong way. This isn't social commentary just being forced in there, but instead a strong point that the game is making while exploring other topics. The gameplay is mostly about snooping on the phone and has a nice voyeuristic quality to it. You can even impersonate her with different people, and it is quite interesting what's available. As much as I dislike the horror aspect in the beginning minutes, because, I'm a scaredy cat, I found myself wanting to play more as it's more of a thriller after that point. Simulacra 2 seems to up the production values but presents a very similar experience, though I do want to mention there are a few grammar issues in both games, and apparently the team who created it is from Malaysia, which might explain that. Nothing really that bad, but it's definitely noticeable, and if that's going to give you problems, you might want to skip this one. Pick this up though if you like horror or thriller games. These aren't very long games, but they're quite unique. Actually, there's some effective and interesting moments. I would recommend wearing headphones because there's one point where I heard a woman's breathing behind me, and I couldn't help but turn and keep looking over my shoulder because I could swear that wasn't from the game. Colt Canyon. This might not look like much, but Colt Canyon is a game that should be checked out. It's a roguelike game with minimalist graphics, and it does pretty well for what it is. While it doesn't look like the deepest game, there's actually quite a bit here. The combat is solid and intense, the gameplay is fun, and there's a few moments where I marveled at how much information was visible in a game with such a simple graphical style. On the other hand, I probably could use more information. I believe there's a Reaper in the game if you kill innocents, but also there's not really a way to understand who is considered innocent or not. I'd probably have to go look that up, which always makes me a little disappointed. Also, ammo is treated as a currency and is a bit scarce early on, but that's something players are going to have to manage using melee attacks if they can. Grab this game if you want an interesting roguelite, especially with this graphical style. It's pretty solid and worth checking out. Skully. This is a strange platformer where the player is a skull filled with mud, and he's assisting what appears to be a deity fighting with his siblings. It's a colorful, bright game with some wonderful music and solid controls. The level design is good with a lot of collectible items, the character design looks expressive, and I like the look of the first form that Skully could transform into. There's a decent challenge, but also a lot to see and explore. The world is interesting, and I want to see what comes next. What's really cool is if you notice, the enemies are all water-based, so they're going to wash away the mud, and Skully loses his mud as he takes damage. There are a few potential issues. It's probably not the longest game, and the music seems to repeat in different areas. That's kind of unfortunate because I want more of that music, but the experience here is solid. Pick this one up if you like platformers and like what you're seeing. It's nice, it's like I said, bright, colorful, and musical, though if you want heavy action, I don't think you're going to find it here. Popup Dungeon. Take Neverwinter Nights, remove the multiplayer, but make it a tabletop papercraft game and allow players to create characters, enemies, and modules themselves, and you have Popup Dungeon. This is a very slick concept though. The writing in the official modules by the devs is a little cheeky with a good amount of humor. Even though it's in dad jokes and I'm a fan of them, these were a little bit terrible. There's also a great map system that combines exploration along with skill checks, combat encounters, choice systems, as players explore each individual module. The gameplay is done as a strategy RPG though, so players will be moving their players tactically and using accrued action points for their abilities. There's a ton of potential here though, with the ability to download new characters made by other people or put them into new modules made by other people. You have the ability to fight anything with, potentially anything, and players are given the tools to make their own stories and characters here. I mean, there's so much potential at the core of this game. I really hope it gets realized. Pick this up though if you want a tabletop game or you enjoy papercraft. The art style here is a love it or hate it choice, but the gameplay here is fun. The writing makes it clear the developers knew what they were going to get into by asking people to make content for them, and honestly, Their modules are great, but I can't wait to see what other people have done with this. Rogue Mansion. This is a sneak peek of a game that plays like a Resident Evil game and a roguelite together. Every run, the mansion is regenerated with all new content and new placements of puzzles. The gameplay is very similar to the original Resident Evil, though, without the tank controls or the fixed camera, thankfully. However, it is also a decently hard game, and the combat is a little stiffer than it should be. There's a dodge mechanic that takes a bit to get used to. I think I was doing it wrong, and the enemies appear to have weak points, but move so fast it might be hard to hit them. Still, after an hour of playing, I was starting to get the hang of it, but it's still an extremely challenging game, and I would need many more runs to get used to the gameplay. It is only a sneak peek, but definitely one that has potential, even if it's probably way too hard. If you pick up the bundle though, check this game out because the developers deserve a lot of credit for their take on a classic. So those are the games this month. Now, honestly, this has been a pretty solid month in my eyes, at least in how I judge the bundle. There's a lot of variety, and overall the games are positive. Even the bad ones aren't that bad compared to previous months. However, the lowest is low for, well, the wrong reasons. Still, there was a lot of variety this month, and a ton of games I didn't even know existed. Some were genres that I wasn't expecting to enjoy, but I did. Honestly, this is a month for players who want to take a chance on something you might like, rather than knowing you definitely will like it. This is kind of where I like Humble Choice, with more variety or overlooked titles than just 3 big titles, and then, 9 other titles that no one really cares about. With that said, though, I'm going to be going over the weakest and then the strongest of this month. As always, we're going to start with the weakest, going into the basement of the choice first. The third weakest this month is Rock of Ages 3 Make and Break. It's a pet peeve of mine, but tutorials in games should feel complete and easy enough to learn from. Rock of Ages 3 feels like someone started making the tutorial and stopped right when the gameplay had to start. It has bad information and it's an unfair challenge at this point in the game. Honestly, it really ruined the experience. The second weakest this month is Shenmue 3. This was disappointing. I finally tried the series and may never come back to any of the titles here. I heard people talking about this game in the same breath as Yakuza, and I don't understand why. But what really upsets me is this was the game fans wanted, and I'm dumbfounded to tell you why. A lot of fans feel the same way, and it's kind of a shame, but at least I can understand why someone might enjoy it. Which is just a segue into the weakest this month. Remothered Broken Porcelain, and broken is right. Shenmue is understandable why it's the way it is. Remothered Broken Porcelain feels like no one cared enough to make a great game, and this is the result. Really, I could go over all the same points again, but just check out Zero Punctuation's video on it. I agree with every single complaint he had. It's the easiest way to sum up what's wrong with that game. Everything. So with those 3 out of the way, let's see what games are the strongest of this month. And I don't have a score for every single game here, but there are 2 runners-up. First, In Other Waters. That's going to be an acquired taste, but it's a really interesting game. It probably could be much higher on this list, but it also definitely would be off the list for some people. The other one is Simulacra and Simulacra 2. It just feels like it's going to be a short game. It's very unique, but I don't know if it deserved the top 5. Still, they are worthy. Definitely take another look at those games. Now, the 5th strongest this month is Skully. This game is bright, cheerful, the music is pure happiness. Honestly, check this one out if you like platformers, and take a close look at those graphics because a lot of effort went into the small things. It's clear someone was really passionate about this title, and I'm glad it's here. The 4th strongest this month is Main Assembly. This is a creative game that players can put a lot of time into and get a lot out of. It's a fun experience and perfect for the type of person who spent hours making the designs with Legos. Games that allow players to be so expressive are rare and definitely worth checking out. The 3rd strongest of this month is F1 2020. It's actually only this low on this list because it's kind of a niche genre. It's Formula 1, and if that interests you at all, this bundle is probably worth it for that game alone. However, most people won't enjoy it, and unfortunately it makes it hard to recommend. Though I try to keep these lists to be what, the general public will like. Personally, I think this might have been my favorite this month. I really enjoyed it, and it definitely deserved a podium finish. The 2nd strongest this month is Popup Dungeon. Similar to Main Assembly, Popup Dungeon is a great game that will be even better if you decide to be creative here. But with a large toolset and a lot of user-created content already, there's a lot here. In the right player's hands, this is easily going to give hundreds of hours of enjoyment, potentially more if you're creating stuff for other people. The strongest game this month is Sniper Ghost Warriors Contracts. With a mixture of Sniper Elite, Metal Gear Solid 5, and Hitman, I was pleasantly surprised at this title. It's got a good difficulty to it, but it's a perfect example of a game that I was unaware of, and now I'm glad to have in my library. And that's what I have for the humble choice for April 2021. It's been an interesting month. Now, I think we need to talk about the channel for just a moment. Last month, I talked about trying to stream my reviews, and it went well. I had a good time with it. I actually played the games like I was going to already, but there was also a chance to reach out to fans, talk, and enjoy the games with other people. Each of the streams is linked below. They're now unlisted from the channel, but this is the way you can check them out yourself if you want to see what happened. And listen, I get it. Not everyone loved this experiment, clearly. I don't blame anyone for unsubscribing. It's also just the first time I've lost subscribers at a substantial level. First, I had some technical issues with the stream, probably caused a few extra notifications. More importantly, YouTube kind of sucks when it's trying to differentiate between people who want to see your streams and want to watch your videos. So, if I bothered you because of anything related to the streams, trust me, I hear you, I understand. I've actually had the same reaction with other channels, and I kind of realized it on the second night. I personally enjoyed streaming. I really enjoyed the chance to get to know the people who chatted, talking with them. If you watched the streams at all, or if you're watching the videos after the fact, thank you very much. Thank you anyone for your support. I am going to try to continue streaming. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to actually go over to Twitch. My channel is going to be kinglink_reviews. I already have it set up, so feel free to follow me there. I'll put a link in the description if you're looking for it. Basically, check me out there. What I am planning on doing is I'll be streaming on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time regularly. I know that's not the best time for everyone, so potentially I'll try to do some other times, so, keep an eye out for that. And I am looking forward to meeting more of you. I mean, honestly, I had a really great time. I hope you guys did too. On the other hand, if you prefer just my long-form videos, what's normally on this channel, consider subscribing here. There's going to be no more streaming on here. It's just going to be content, and I'm really excited. I'm actually closing in on 2,000 subscribers, which is incredible. I honestly never thought I would hit 100 views, let alone 100 subscribers. The fact I'm now 20 times as large as that today, staggers me. It's a little bit overwhelming, but it's so awesome. I honestly can't believe how far I've come, and it makes me realize, I can't create subscribers. It's you guys who have checked me out and decided to stick around. So, again, I've said it a few times, but thank you, everyone. It means so much to me. Sorry about that long update, but really, big milestone and also trying something different. I just had to get that out there. Now, to get out of here, I'll pop up some videos here if you want to see more. I did a video on the idea of how to review games that are better with friends, which oddly does not tie into any specific game this month. Darn. I also have a video on UHS Hints, an old walkthrough site that did things a bit differently. Doesn't have a connection either, but I think it's a good video as well. Until then, I'm King Link, and thanks for watching.